Hello and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who gets angry, who gets mad, a brave man, a caveman. It's John Levingood.
Was I bitten by Neanderthal and now I'm like a caveman?
No, it's the song from Johnny Get Angry.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
I thought you were making a movie reference.
From the director's cut. She has her song number.
Oh my God, that's right.
Johnny Get Angry.
That's interesting. You know, I had actually never seen the director's cut until recently preparing for this. I had only ever seen the regular
100 minutes.
The theatrical cut, because that's what was always on HBO, you know, back in like the 90s and early 2000s. Mm-hmm. It was like always that. These scenes that I saw in the director's cut, I never saw before. And you found out something pretty cool about all there's more than just a couple cuts.
Yeah, there's 7,000 of them. So you have the theatrical cut, and then a bunch of VHS tapes got spread around, and then there was I forget the other cut, but then there was the Cabal cut, and eventually there is the director's cut, the approved cut, which the Blu-ray has a commentary with Clive Barker on it, talking about his experience. And what's neat about the director's cut is it's only 20 minutes longer than the theatrical cut, but it has 45 minutes of new footage, which is...
So I was a little miffed by things that I did. I couldn't pick out all the things, but even like in the closing fight finale, I know that a lot of things were missing, even if I don't know the precise things. And the collapsing city, I felt, dude, I was not a fan of the director's cut.
Yeah, you know what? You know what's crazy? I was like, you know what? If I'm doing the director's cut, I should probably watch the regular cut, like we did with Halloween, 6? So we talked about 6 and then the producer's cut. And call me crazy, but the original cut, the 1990 theatrical cut, it's pretty tight. It's yes, it doesn't go into a lot of the lore, but it's a tight 100-minute experience, and it's still effective nonetheless. Watching the 100-minute cut, I can understand why people wanted a director's cut, because so we've discussed it before. We would love to watch an Event Horizon director's cut, but we don't think it's necessary. Sorry, I'm not speaking for you, but I don't think it's necessary, because what makes those scenes in Hell and Event Horizon so iconic for me is there's just enough. You're not like, you know me, I analyze movies not to make fun of them, but I like looking for quirky things. And like in Event Horizon, you don't see anything really like that takes you out of it. So I think it's the perfect amount. This, I mean, yes, there's a lot more focus on the slasher. It's a great looking slasher, and it's Cronenberg speaking in a monotone the entire time, and it's wonderful. But the director's cut, it's good, but it still feels disjointed to a certain extent. So if I'm going to watch one, I'll probably just do the 100-minute cut from now on. But I mean, I'm happy I watched the director's cut of this movie, and I do not want to watch the Cabal cut of this film. But I think there's just... So John, can I ask you a question? I was really wondering about this, and you and I have been podcasting together since 2015. We have talked about so many monster movies, so many zombie movies, so many horror movies. But like, you know that TV show on Netflix, The Movies That Made Us? Like, what are the monsters that made you? Like, so the movie monsters. Like, so growing up, like, what were some formative... Because you talked about renting this with your allowance, and like, what were some formative monster movie experiences for you, or monsters that really kickstarted your love for monsters? I don't know if you remember.
I mean, we're not talking about a Freddy Krueger. We mean monsters.
So like Krueger's very much so like these monsters, slasher. I guess are these monsters I guess humanoid, but when she's walking through the city and you see all the different monsters.
Oh my God. You know what I mean? Like going through a menagerie. It was like Flight of the Navigator, looking at all the terrariums of all the creatures from other worlds.
And that is 100% a movie for me. Flight of the Navigator is 100% one of those. I have two others, but I was wondering like what, I mean, yes, there are a lot of humanoid monsters in here, and that's fine if you want to talk about Freddy, but like what were can you give me some humanoid and non-humanoid?
So,
monsters.
I mean, things like, Critters, big impact. They were fun movies. They were the right time for me. And then, even though not absolute horror, but like the Xenomorphs, the alien menagerie spawned by H.R. Geiger, they're really big for me. Pumpkinhead, although really the first movie is the only one I'm going to call a good film.
Yeah.
The second one is a little entertaining, and after that, they become like, let's watch a bad movie tonight for fun. There's four of those, by the way. Anyone who isn't aware. But I think of movies like that. I think of, oh gosh, I think of movies like The Kindred, where there was kind of this tentacle monster. It's from I want to say 88, 89. It was usually the tentacle monster things, though. Like in a way, I remember the monster that came out of the cave and grabbed a dude, this big crustacean thing in Big Trouble in Little China, more than I remember monsters that I see throughout entire movies.
Oh, what a great monster. Oh man. That was a beautiful. Yeah, you know what? That really stuck with me as well. I think you could probably guess my number one, John.
Are we going with Jaws as the monster?
No, but we've talked about this creature.
Trantor the troll?
That's in my top three. I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot here, but Rancor.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
For me, like just the monsters in Return of the Jedi. So I love the Hafwampa in Empire Strikes Back, right? Great monster. But for me, when Return of the Jedi, when that creature puts its arm around C-3PO when he's walking to the prison, the Gamorrean guard slapping it, the Rancor, Salacious Crumb, how mean it was. But yeah, watching that Rancor eat that Gamorrean guard, just like I feel like all of my love of monsters that I see in my head, like I have a screenplay that I've been writing for too long, just keeps evolving. It's all monsters on that, and then watching how the Rancor dies in the Rancor Keeper, which we talked about in our favorite 60-second character episode. It's that moment for me watching that Rancor Keeper cry over the Rancor is, I don't know. When I was young, I was like, why is this? Do I like the Rancor? Why is he crying? Why is this man crying? And why is his buddy consoling him? So that's it for me. And I know, Nightbreed, this movie had the Guinness World Record of showing the most monsters on screen for a while. So I guess that's why I wanted to know, because for as long as I've known you, you've always been a fan of horror movies and monsters. So I kind of wanted to know like what your formative experiences were with those things.
It really is hard though. It's a menagerie of whatever I'm thinking of at the moment. But I think I named the bigs, and I didn't even think of the Star Wars movies. My mind immediately went to horror and horror adjacent. Even
Willow,
yeah,
man.
The Rancor is so cool. Like when I first saw that, right? I guess I don't remember when I first saw it, but just watching Star Wars when I was young, these movies, that was always such a treat. Seeing that creature in its Rancor pit just reach for somebody was so cool. And you got all the Seven Voyage of Sinbad like claymation monsters, or that the 8-armed or 10-armed god with all the swords and the other creatures, and the Clash of the Titans monsters. Yeah, there's so much rich, just neat stuff out there.
Yeah, and the trolls from Willow too. I just thought they were super mean. Oh my god,
and the two-headed like moat drake thing in Willow. Oh, so cool. Yeah.
For me, it's just I'm just all about those monsters. And this is, what's kind of crazy? I felt like, you and I have talked about this. In '90, I felt like I was pretty hip with whatever by this time I was watching pretty much tons of movies, and I felt like I pretty much knew all the horror movies that were on the shelves. But for some reason, Nightbreed has always gone under my radar. And for some reason, maybe it's just the VHS box, the DVD box, but I've always had the wrong opinion of what Nightbreed is. It's much more sensitive. It's much more Clive Barker-esque. You have the monsters who aren't the monsters, and in the commentary, Clive Barker said he was very James Whale, so a lot of Frankenstein, early Universal stuff, where the monsters aren't exactly the monsters, it's more the people. For me, looking at this, it seemed like this movie just seemed like these monsters were super cool on the cover. And I was like, what is this movie? Are these awesome, cool monsters? Like, what are
they? Almost looked like a gang. Like if the Lost Boys were all different kinds of monsters.
That's a great point. Because if you think about Lost Boys, that was 3-4 years prior to this. So you just put them on the cover and they all look cool. But that's not what this movie is.
Well, yeah, like your Near Dark cover too. This gang of people, but you know that's a vampire movie. You know it's just a group of vampires. And the Lost Boys, you know it's a group of vampires. And this, you're like, I don't know what I'm looking at. With the Monster Squad, you know exactly what you're getting when you see this group of things, right, assembled on the cover. This one, they almost look like they're a band, and Craig Sheffer is the front man.
Yes, yeah, like Midian and the Go-Go's.
Midian, oh gosh, Midian and the Thumb Claws,
and the Hornheads. But
right.
It's this movie.
Baphomet and the Midians. Baphomet and the Unnaturals.
Oh, I love that name. But yeah, it's a very sensitive movie. When I think about Hellraiser, which is also Clive Barker, I think of, for me, what comes to mind is just nastiness, and not in a bad way, but just it is a mean movie. The basic antagonist is a man in that movie who's turned evil, and then eventually you have the Cenobites who come in very briefly to kind of take him out because he's been bad. But yeah,
and they're very neutral.
Yeah, so like you always have the human Barker likes to have the human as the villain, at least in this, at least in Nightbreed and in Hellraiser. But I guess for me, I've learned about it in the last few years because I learned about the different cuts. I just sort of, those movies that you probably should watch to be a completist, but you just haven't gotten around to. But I guess the instigating instance of why I don't know. The reason we're talking about this movie right now, Words, is that you wrote a review for it on Movies, Films, and Flicks, and a lot of people liked it. It got good traction, a lot of likes, a lot of comments. I think people were super jazzed about it. So I'm like, okay, it's time. And I'm glad I watched this movie. I was watching this movie with Megan, and she was into it because it is quite interesting. It's different. It's unique. It has a personality. But like, what's your history with this movie?
So I went to this non-chain video rental place with my allowance starting around, third or fourth grade every Friday. And I would just use my whole allowance and rent a few movies. And as soon as I was allowed to get R-rated movies, which is probably about the time I was 11, maybe 12, right? But I mean, I was 11 or 12 in 92, beginning of 92. I was 11. So but I mean, this came out in 90. Back then, it took a solid year to get to videos, right? And if this came out in late 90, this might not have hit a video store until almost 92. So chances are I saw this on new releases and got it first then. And I know I've rented this multiple times between middle school and high school, partly because it was awesome, partly because I don't know why Porcupine Woman, she did something for 13-year-old John, and Smoke Woman pulling a Bram Stoker, but it, but you can watch almost any cheap horror movie and get that. You return to the movie because it's a good movie and it's cool, and these characters, again, it's not. I'm not going to liken this to true Star Wars Cantina level, but there are so many creatures that either had memorable lines or did memorable things or that played a memorable role teaching you something about the world or the diversity of personalities in Midian, right? And the diversity, not just the diversity of forms of creatures, but what are they doing there? Some of them are these insane, uncontrollable, Hulk-like abominations from maybe some forgotten era, even maybe they're from the time of Revelations, beats me, right? And then you have these other ones that are more beastly, and the Smoke Woman, who has the daughter who had escaped out, right, that Boone's girlfriend saved. She even refers to the diversity of powers they have, but she's really just referring to Bram Stoker's Dracula. She says to become smoke, to turn into a wolf, to know the night, to fear the sun. And so she's speaking purely Bram Stoker lines there. And so it's very interesting how they're bringing up things like that they're almost were-like creatures. And Peliquin, in a way, he just gets a little more monstrous. And Boone, he's almost like a were-rune demon, right? And then, but very few of these people changed their form when they aggress, right? Most of them, they just are. And some of them can go in the sunlight and some can't. And, it's just it's showing you this breadth of mythologies within its own mythology. And I just want to know more about this world. And how did Midian get there?
Mm-hmm.
And why is it there? How many places has it been? Why Baphomet? Or they call it Baphomet. But
Baphomet,
whenever
yeah.
we have a goat-headed demon in movies, and it's come up in so many horror movies, it's Baphomet, right? This goat-headed demon / devil. Often it has breasts, actually, like women's breasts in illustrations and old occult illustrations. But it's a big name demon in our world and our theologies and our occultisms. And so it's cool seeing that as their savior. It's one of these ideas that the underworld, right, that your antithesis of heaven, that your antithesis of angels, that your antithesis of, I guess, the Christian God, is what we're used to thinking of as evil and a demon, and they call it the baptizer, and they consider it sacred. So there's, I don't know, but you have different people whose different roles are just introducing you to these things. It's like this is magic to me. Like, it's so cool. It's like being introduced to the Avatar world, except it's an underworld where a bunch of monstrous people live.
And you're right. There's so many different rooms and dynamics, and what's going on in there? What's going on in there? Why is that creature eating another creature? There's cannibalism in these cages? Or is that why they're in the cage? Because that thing was just eating a dead body in
Right.
that thing. So did it murder somebody in there? I mean,
or I'm sorry, or like the notion of ghouls,
yeah.
grave eating ghoul. Maybe that's what that's touching on. Right?
I guess they are in a cemetery, but it's it's almost like a Nightmare Before Christmas before a Nightmare Before Christmas, because Clive Barker said that one of the biggest problems he had with the studio was that they didn't want nice creatures. They didn't want to have humans slaughtering these things. I mean, there's scenes where they are just shooting these monsters. They are just murdering these helpless creatures. And it's sort of a flip of the tropes where normally it's monsters killing people. And then, but what's interesting too, and I don't know if you like this, but what Barker does is that this is a world where there are monsters who are gentle. There are monsters, but then there's also berserkers. So it's not this pitch perfect world of we are monsters, we are saints. They are just different, and they've been hunted and killed, which could mean a menagerie of many different things. Because Barker loves to put that kind of stuff in there. He references James Whale, who also did that in his films. But, the outcasts, the LGBTQ plus community. Like he said that this was kind of a place where like the different monsters went and they were kind of chased away from society. But also you can look at it like that, or also you can just look at it as these are cool monsters in a cool place with a cool backstory, with cool dynamics. And where do they get these glass jars to put water and eels in? Like, where do they get all these clothes from? It's just an interesting world, I guess, for me. And I think you're right. It makes you ask a lot of cool questions, not how do they even do that? There's good questions.
Yeah, in no way do I want to sound mean or discrediting, but again, I very much disfavored the director's cut.
Yeah.
But for me, the reason is that the director's cut removed things that I liked that were there, replaced them with things that I kind of like less, because I want a director's cut because I want to know more about this world.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And in fact, everything that was added was instead focused. It was a little more romanticized.
Yeah, Laurie and Aaron.
Right, a lot more scenes in both the beginning and end of them, and it was more a journey of their relationship, in my opinion, at the expense of the gravity and brutality of the slaughter at the end, and some little bits along the way that I can't quite put my finger on. But you see, I didn't want that. It's not that isn't valuable. Right? It's that I want to know more about this world. And it's funny, you mentioned Event Horizon. I would love a director's cut of Event Horizon, but it has nothing to do with seeing really more of that, we'll call it the death orgy montage.
Mm-hmm.
It would just be like, were there scenes that were cut that he wanted there?
Yeah.
Is my question. Whereas when we're talking about this movie, I have questions about this world and the mythology and so many things brought up in the movie. I did not necessarily feel like there were holes in what I wanted to know in Event Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And this, we know that Boone was having dreams about Midian, and so you think, oh well, he must have some connection to it. But wait, hold on. We find out that he heard about it. Where did he hear about it? I want to know from whom or how, or was it in some text? Was it some person at a bar who was drunk? Was someone attacked? Like, how did he hear about this?
Mm-hmm.
That fascinates me, right? And the prophecy, and I'm a little, I'll pick at it, but how did Peliquin not know that that was him on that wall drawing?
Yeah, that's
Unless there's a history of that type of monster, right? Maybe there is, but I'd still think like you're the only one that I'm aware of that looks like you. I'm sure there are some other many creatures we didn't see, but that was interesting. Or maybe he just didn't hang out in there. You're there when you play there when you're kids, and then a couple hundred years of boredom, you don't go there again. But
mm-hmm.
but it was curious, these prophecies, and where did this prophecy come from? Do they have a black Bible, some inverse? I have so many questions. So they talk about their laws, where they come from, what times and or worlds did these denizens come from?
The flashbacks that they had that really reminded me of Demon Knight to a certain extent as well.
I see that. I see the Bram Stoker's Vlad the Impaler montage.
Yeah.
You know what else? I see. I can't think of the movie. Not End of Days, or maybe Prophecy. The Revelations montage of the dead angels in the battlefield.
Oh, because I just watched Prophecy, but for some reason I don't remember it.
Wasn't that in that at some point?
I think you're right though. I mean, this movie, Little Monsters came out the year before, I believe.
It was absolutely in the 80s, I think, right?
So I guess there were different monster worlds, but were there monster worlds like Freddy takes you into the boiler room, right? But were there, aside from Star Wars, but those worlds weren't underground hidden worlds. That's just in a cantina or in Jabba's palace. Yeah. Were there worlds like this before? I mean, explored.
I don't know the answer on the spot, but I can say that most of my recollections go to small scale.
Yeah.
Right? Like underneath this castle is a network of caves, but it's just like, all one type of creature, one creature that's been in it, harassing generations of a family in this castle. Like kind of like a lurking fear vibe, Lovecraftian things like that. But yeah, that's a curious thought, right? I mean, the closest thing I can really think of is more like a Morlock situation, like a time machine Morlock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is basically the anti-human, right? That was the evolution. You had these like telepaths and then these Morlock beasts, right? Something like that.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I guess Planet of the Apes, but that's not really underground and hidden. But it's just interesting. Yeah, and also Little Monsters is much scarier to me than Nightbreed. But I also watched Little Monsters when I was a kid. And that movie,
Little Monsters, does get curiously dark.
Yeah, that one guy shaking the kid, talking about eating him. But no, the one thing though, I think the 100-minute cut, people are probably losing their minds right now. But I remember watching the 100-minute cut and going, that's really tight. There's not much meat on its bones, and that's not a insult. But this is what I'm thinking. Sometimes I like to play this game where you are a studio executive, John. You shot this movie for $13 million. You shot it in Pinewood next to Batman 1989. Big studio space. This movie has Midian has some big sets in here. There's some large sets in this movie.
Very Indiana Jones Temple of Doom too, with all those crossways.
So cool. But then you watch it and you just think to yourself, I wanted Hellraiser. It's like when the Canon guys watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and they just went, Toby, you murdered us. Like, we're done. Like, why did you do this to us? But you're a studio executive. You see Clive Barker's cut. And, in the director's cut, in the commentary, he said this is the way it should be. This is Aaron and Laurie's story. And I do like Laurie because she's, and Bobby, she was talking about this during there's a 72-minute documentary as well about how they got here. But she's also talking about how she likes Laurie because Laurie's like, everyone's like, you should go away. She's like, no, I'm going to the underworld. I'm going to find him. I liked her attitude on that. But Barker believes that it's the story of Aaron and Laurie. But if you're a studio executive and you wanted Hellraiser and you get this movie, the director's cut. Now, this is not a slight on Clive Barker, but you're going to be kind of scared, John. You're going to look at Button Eyes, or, Dr. Philip K. I like Philip K. That's funny. It's a good reference. Like Decker, Philip K. Decker. You're going to want to go back to that iconic mask, or like, I'm evil. I'm the worst. Like, just, I don't even know what point Cronenberg has in this movie. He's a psychiatrist who gaslights a mentally unstable man who then goes to a place and gets killed, but then he becomes a Nightbreed, and then Cronenberg wants to come and kill. Is he necessary in this movie?
I don't know if he's necessary, but it's really cool. I really like it.
Good.
In the theatrical cut, because again, I find the addition of Laurie, saying this having seen the theatrical cut many, many, many times, and the director's cut only once, to be fair. So it's like the movie I know, right? But I feel like adding this whole Laurie thing, if anything, is more distracting. She was in there a good amount to still be a relevant, significant character throughout the movie. She wasn't a throwaway character or anything. When we gave her all this more stuff, we're taking away some other stuff. Or even if we're not eliminating minutes of screen time, we're dividing our interests and our focus of why is this happening, what's important here. In the original cut, the theatrical cut, we're just dead set on David Cronenberg, his doctor, his psychiatrist, and Boone, and what's going on there. Is Boone a killer? What's going on? By the way, this is a creepy psychiatrist. Wait, the psychiatrist is the killer. Weird side plot. Wait a minute, he's always going back and forth trying to use Boone to set up his murders that he can enjoy murdering and have someone to line this up on. So this is all happening. Is it necessary? No, but it's cool. It's interesting. It keeps us a lot more engaged in the seminal 30 minutes of a horror film that, other than a cold open, are normally dragging for people. Right? Because that's not where we're world building. So it was cool. And I especially liked that in the theatrical cut, but not the director's cut, the psychiatrist becomes apparently a Nightbreed from some kind of association with the original Shrine to Baphomet. And with our priest, who is already a dodgy Catholic priest, right, who was turned zealot for this inverse Bible, right? And he's like worshiping the shrine with his literally crucified dead guy who was killed in this battle, and he comes back to life, and the priest rejoices. And it's such a dark, twisted, again, like this, I know very, very religious people might call this sacrilege, and they're not wrong, right? But at the same time, it's not. I think it's being presented as this inverse of our normal views, not necessarily an evil version of our normal views, right? It just seems so distorted. And at the end, it might feel a little evil. I don't know. There's so much neat stuff going on here. Eliminating that hurt me. And also, as someone who likes, gore and horror and good action and seeing money spent on the screen, when you see literally what I'll call a third or a quarter of the massacre at Midian at the expense of romantic scenes with Laurie, I don't know. And her killing herself, and then him biting her when he doesn't even have fang. I don't know. Just to me, that felt forced.
Interesting.
Her suicide felt forced. His changing her felt royally forced for me.
So you know what's funny, John, is you and I kind of have the same reaction too, because I think we both like Clive Barker wanted to build a horror mythology from the ground up, and we really appreciate that. This is a world that is completely new from his novella, from what he wrote, and so it's really cool to have these new visuals on screen. But it's funny, I watched the director's cut first, then I watched the 100-minute cut, and this is the fourth time I'm saying it, but I just went, that's tight. Like, it's a tight 100-minute movie. I I almost appreciated the brevity of that because it's a much more simple plot at this point. It's psychiatrist pins murders on this guy. He gets killed. He comes back. He becomes a Nightbreed, and then the town and the psychiatrist go to kill him or the all the monsters. That's it. And essentially the humans are the monsters because they're attacking the monsters. So it still works as the humans are the monsters. You still have the relationship, but it's yeah. I mean, I don't mind the director's cut. I showed Megan the director's cut and she enjoyed it. Like she thought it had personality. Like it's different. It's fun. But yeah, I guess if you've been if you've been watching the 100-minute cut all these years and then you add a lot more to it. Yeah, we both have weird experiences. I have never watched this before. I saw the director's cut first and I enjoyed it. But if I had to put something on when you ever come visit, like we're putting on the 100-minute cut.
Yeah, and then of course there's the Cabal cut, right, which is 3 hours and 42 minutes. Now, you know why I want to see that? Because I was informed by people online that most of what was added was more about Midian, more dimensions of Midian, more story and world building with Midian. Mm-hmm. So I'm all in, right? And then there's a 4 hour and 2 minute cut. There's something longer than the Cabal cut, or there's two different Cabal cuts, right? So, but one of them was 4 hours and 2 minutes. Boy, if that thing as long as David Cronenberg still comes back as some kind of, I'm going to loosely call him almost like an anti-Christian like token at the end. It's like he's almost showing the danger that still exists as they're going to be rebuilding a new Midian at the end of the movie, following the end of the movie with Boone. Like, yes, they're going to go rebuild, but hold on. The person who was first hell-bent on destroying them is back and presumably somehow more powerful.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good sequel right there. That plays
like I want to see the Netflix series of this, Mark. I want them to take the 4 hour cut. I want them to turn it into 8 30-minute episodes. And that's season 1. And then season 2 is going to be with now undead evil Nightbreed Dr. Philip.
Philip.
Dr. Philip.
Philip K.
It was interesting to me too that when Dr. Philip learned about it, he immediately wanted to destroy all the monsters of Nightbreed. Whereas I would have thought the reverse. I would have thought he would have been fascinated with them or want to be one of them or want to learn their secrets. It was upon multiple viewings in a short period of time. I found myself suddenly very shocked.
I guess the way I looked at it is, I love it. Just Philip K. Dick and then Philip K. Such a great, like, it's not an homage. What is it? It's a reference. I mean, you know who they're talking about. But for me, I kind of feel like Cronenberg, this mass serial killer, had this god complex. He was the monster. He's the one who murdered families and kids. He's the one who analyzed people's brains. He had the superiority. He was the evil, if that makes sense. And then he learns that there are real monsters. So then I feel like, I have no idea what it's like inside the mind of a
serial killer.
This guy,
very premeditated serial killer.
I mean, is he a sociopath? He's not a sociopath because he doesn't try to act normal. So he's more of a psychopath?
That's a good question, right? Is he just a psychopath who happens to fit into modern society?
Because
we look at very, very analytical people and sometimes we give them a pass for being weird.
Yeah. And so he's not trying to blend in at all. He's not like sociopaths try to blend in, correct?
Right. Well, when he talks to Boone in both cuts, he says, Boone, like, I haven't heard from you in a while. He's like, yeah, I've been really well. I've been doing really good. He says, I this, that, and the other. I was thinking, I really need to see you. But he's actually saying, like, Boone, I really need to see you.
Yeah.
And then Boone's like, okay, well, I can, maybe I can't come in today. He's like, well, then tomorrow morning then. He's like, okay, yeah, sure. We're about to leave town. I can catch you tomorrow. He said, don't let me down. But it's all monotone, and he is clearly kind of desperate without putting it in his intonation, because he needs to set someone up for a murder. He needs it. He's desperate. He's doing something that no therapist is going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
It's like, hey, haven't seen you forever. I just want to check in. Oh, I've been really well. Oh no, I need to see you like right now. Like,
yeah, in the interviews the actor said that Cronenberg basically did anti-acting, and he was like, it was really interesting to play off. It's like I didn't quite know what to do with Cronenberg doing that. But
I
also
mean,
too, and sorry to I just want to go back to one point before I found the quote when Dr. Phillips says, "No, I'm death, plain and simple." So then this guy who thinks he's death realizes that there's actual monsters out there and people who are dead coming back to life. That's got to sting, right? Isn't there movies where, alphas realize that there's even bigger alphas and they can't handle that? Do you think that?
sure.
Yeah.
It could be something like that, like a quiet, simmering rage. I do just sit there and wonder how there's not some dialogue at some point about him wanting what they have.
Yeah.
Because he does say, like, how, no, you did indeed see him shot dead, but he is now walking.
Oh,
Like, even
yeah.
though he's monotone, you know that he finds this fascinating, even though he also seems to want to eliminate Boone and all these creatures of this world to which he has been drawn, from which he has been spawned. But like, it's like it's
He's
like
jealous.
he's right, but he's also playing like this Van Helsing by proxy.
That's funny. Yeah, yeah, what if Van Helsing was a serial killer?
Right. What if Van Helsing was also the New York Ripper? Right.
Yeah, no, but I think that's what makes that character so interesting to me is the way Cronenberg underplays. I mean, we're talking, that's one of the strangest acting, like, it's a brilliant man, but it's one of the oddest acting performances I think I've ever seen on a mainstream
I
film.
wouldn't have him change anything though.
No, 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 I'm
I
not saying
love
it's
it.
bad. It's just interesting that Barker let him have that. It's
Mhm.
very, normally characters like this, you get a Loomis, you get he's kind of like the anti-Loomis almost. He is monotone. He
Right.
is,
They're both obsessed, right?
yeah.
Right. They're one is mentally grounded and monotone. The other is mentally erratic and all over the place.
Michael. But yeah, I think that's why this movie, though, and I don't want to speak for people, but if I saw this 100-minute cut and I heard there was another cut out there with more monsters, I guess I would fight. I would want that because this movie gives you, what's interesting about Barker is he had a relatively short run with filmmaking. He had some rough goes of it, and I think this movie really set him back, and he didn't want to make too many movies after this.
I think that the last what I'll call mainstream thing that he did was Lord of Illusions,
Yeah,
which I loved. I want to get that. Fantastic, really cool, dark film. But yeah, I think that was the last mainstream thing that he did. Not the last thing he actually did, though. He did some other stuff.
but yeah, he just really, I think that experience really, because like let's see, he did a video, but like yeah, he did Lord of Illusions in '95, Nightbreed, Hellraiser, and Hellraiser, Nightbreed, and Lord of Illusions. So he had a short run, but I think this movie pained him because you're an author used to writing your novellas. He had such a easy, like he had such a you can't imagine much oversight during Hellraiser, and so I think those two movies really took him out of filmmaking. Clive Barker, he had such a bad time making this, and he hated the post production of this film. So it's kind of a shame, but I can't think of too many other directors who made so few films that have had such an impact on
Mhm.
horror. And what he specializes in, for me at least with Hellraiser, is you can watch Hellraiser once, and I feel like for the rest of your life you can remember moments from it.
Mhm.
Uh, how many movies have you and I watched that we have to be reminded of that we've watched? Is that like a day later?
most, most of them.
Yeah. I went and watched a movie the other day. I'm not gonna say which one, but I watched it maybe a couple of months ago. And then later on that day, I went, "Oh yeah, Megan, we saw that movie." It was perfectly fine, but it was disposable. So I guess Clive Barker's films, you can't call them disposable. Like whether it's Hellraiser or Nightbreed, there's some really neat visuals in these films, but he's just such not a mainstream guy. He's more of a cult status guy. Do you think? He's not. His movies aren't for the mainstream.
He's, before we had art house films making it to theaters, he was the person with an art house attitude, but who was still making mainstream movies.
Yeah.
He's the person who had a vision, and I need to show you this vision the way I have it, or it's not the vision, right? And I know this is going to alienate a lot of people, push a lot of people in the wrong direction, but this is the vision. This is what it is. If you want to change it this way, it's not the thing anymore. So I you're just avant-garde in that way.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So he was taking a lot of the risks that, again, producers producers don't like risks.
No.
They want guarantees. They want something that feels so much more familiar to get people to want to go see that thing because it reminds them of Halloween, or it reminds them of Nightmare on Elm Street. They want, or reminds them of Gremlins even. And so they're going to go see Critters, and then go see Munchies, and then go see Ghoulies, right? They want that, of course.
But Nightbreed is not that.
Yeah. No, it is not. It's I mean, even the trailer, I watched the original trailer before I watched the director's cut just for kicks. And I'm watching this, and in the trailer, it's even saying, it's a world of monsters, but in this world, the monsters are the good guys. But you're watching this trailer, and of course, the scenes that people chose for the trailer don't really depict it that way. It just shows monsters looking monstrous.
The big mouth opening and...
So it's like it's almost like the trailer makers didn't even quite know how to approach this, between the voiceover narration in it and the images, the little supercut that they put together. Because if you watch this trailer again, it's like they're talking about one movie and showing you kind of a different movie. And if you haven't already seen the movie, you're like, is this the right narration for the right trailer?
This summer, Clive Barker has created a real happy film. And then the Caveman song comes on. But it's, but also too, if you think about these monsters in this movie, are they the good guys, or are they just not as evil as, because nothing they really do is quite good. They're slaughtered. The humans are the evil ones in this movie is what I'm saying. But it's not like the good guy. And people call this Clive Barker's X-Men movie. And I'm just thinking, how is this Clive Barker's X-Men movie? This is not, are they talking about Xavier School for Gifted Students? That's why they're at Midian? Because they can't exist in the real world? It's just odd. People don't quite know what this movie is.
Yeah, I'd sooner call it, Clive Barker's Lord of the Rings. It's just the scale is so small.
Yeah. Does part of you wish that this movie had $13 million budget? There was a lot of stress on him during the production of this. Do you wish that this movie had let's say a $7 million budget? And so you
instead of 13?
Yeah. And so you don't have the gigantic, ginormous sets, but you do have more Clive Barker creative control, less people breathing over him. When I think about M. Night Shyamalan movies, I want an M. Night Shyamalan movie that costs $15 million. Old cost $19 million. The Visit costs $5 million. I want a low budget M. Night movie because that's where I think he thrives lately. So, do you think this movie, if this stuck to his $7 million guns, could have been more effective? It couldn't have done as many monsters or world building, but
there would have been minimal action.
Yeah. But
minimal gunplay action. So you wouldn't have had that.
No berserk. You don't really need the berserkers. It's an interesting thing. Maybe the berserker is in there. For me, I would rather see this is what it could have, should have, and there's 4 cuts. So I can't complain. But I do think a smaller, more Hellraiser version of this, a Insidious version of this, might have worked better for me. Because yes, there's a beautiful amount of monsters in there, and it did break the Guinness World Records, but you don't see them enough. You just kind of see a little bit of them to think they're cool, but maybe make 12 of them. Maybe... Does that make sense?
Sure. Because like what can you do with 12 monsters that you, or what can you do with 26 monsters that you can't do with 12, to be real, right?
Yeah.
Do we need that many? There were some that looked like throwaway monsters to me, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. No, there was like there's some with scarred faces, and during the attack, some of them are running around, and you could see that they're clearly meant for when you do Walking Dead, you have the A zombies up front, the B zombies in the row back, the C zombies in the back, and then all the way in the back you have people wearing masks, zombie masks. So you had some of those front and center, but I guess for me, make this smaller, put this more on let's say what's his name, Cronenberg, bringing some cops who don't have flamethrowers, going in there to kill. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
make it
and they don't
slim.
have dynamite.
Yeah, no,
Or maybe it's cheaper if they only have dynamite and handguns, because then it's really just about the threat of them exploding and collapsing Midian, and then there's not this huge Revelation scale gunfight.
yeah, like think about the claustrophobia of the first Hellraiser. You could make that cheap. Think about Insidious when Patrick Wilson goes into the further. That movie had a $1.5 million budget. And yes, it looks cheap, but I hate saying woulda, coulda, shoulda. I don't know. That final gunfight's fine, but it just, I don't know. It's a fun movie though. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on it, but I would have loved to have seen Clive Barker's 5 million cut.
I don't want to give up anything that we got. However, if the difference was that there was more storytelling than we received, then I'd be more interested. Even if it was just people in a room having conversations about things, like Boone having questions about, but what does this mean? How did this happen? And, you see some wall drawings and he's just telling a story or something, right? I do hunger to know more, but I don't want to lose what we had. I do like what we had. But there was some throwaway stuff.
Yeah.
I would just want a totally different approach to the movie, I think, at that point, where the war is just a threat. The war with mankind is just a threat, and they just somehow subvert that a battle with mankind happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more about the storytelling.
I'd
be more for that if we were to have our smaller budget.
I mean, Button Eyes is still scary enough. You don't need a militia with him. But then that wrecks the whole point of humans are evil, the whole James Whale, the whole Frankenstein vibe. But, yeah. Hey,
and of course it did that, but what it really made me think specifically of was Dawn of the Dead and the kind of the hunters. Well, it came off as more of a redneck rally.
Yeah, it did.
Of people hooting and hollering, and they're getting all the locals who are just excited to go shoot up some things that they just learned existed.
Yeah.
Right, without question.
Let's go kill him.
Right, because that's what happened. The cops are just handing out guns to people.
Imagine if you and I are just jogging, and they just hand us a couple of rifles, and we're like, "Where are we going, guys? Like, what's going on?"
We go kill some monsters. I'm in. Of course.
Do you know anything about them? No.
It's like, Mark, did he say monsters? It's like, whatever, man. We get to go shoot stuff. Like, wait, that seemed to be the response.
Did we just... But I guess with horror, you got Jason, you have the militias, you have the latest Halloween with the militia, you have Nightbreed with the militias. Horror, and
Jason,
you have Frankenstein
he didn't really
with the
militia until Jason Goes to Hell.
What was it in 4 when the armed gunman... No, that was Michael Myers. Remember in 4... Yeah. My bad, I mixed up my Michael Myers. Yeah, but yeah, I guess there was not a militia coming out for Jason. Well, there was in Jason Goes to Hell, but that was like SWAT.
Yeah, Jason Goes to Hell opened with it.
Yeah, they just blow him up. And that the woman who was the federal agent in that, she was in Roadhouse, and now she's a major stunt coordinator. I just wanted to drop some facts. Yeah, it's awesome. I did the Roadhouse Minute show, a Roadhouse podcast, and we talked about that. But hey, real quick, I think some of my favorite moments, I'm just gonna go my 5 favorite moments really quick. I loved when the lady gets the egg whiskey and beer drink. Like that made me laugh. I don't know. I'm like, that thing doesn't look terrible. I love when he comes across the man in the store with all the tchotchkes on his hat, and he's like, what's in the graveyard? Ain't nothing but dead folk. Like, I love their interactions. Like, I am evil incarnate. Like, that just sort of made me laugh. I love that movie. That moment. I love the final fight because they are just falling through wooden bridges, that makes me very happy. And I think another one is when Cronenberg is going to try to kill, I have her name right here, why do I not remember it, Lori, and Aaron just starts punching the guys in the chamber, I guess, when he's talking to, the head of Midian. He just starts socking monsters in their faces. Just there's something about seeing a monster getting jabbed in the face, John, that makes me very happy. And I think my favorite is, let's see, what is my favorite? I do like both endings with the priest. I like that in one he just sort of kills the cop and he wants to go on the hunt of that group, and then in the other one where he makes Cronenberg come back alive. I think that's interesting. I like it. I think it's what Malcolm Smith, Father Ashbury. I like that ending. I like the look of him a lot at the end. I love that makeup job. So those are my five favorite.
I thought that was kind of an honor play on the priest in The Blob, 1988.
I've never watched it.
You've never seen 1988 The Blob, Mark? Oh my goodness. Amazing. So amazing. Goopy, amazing special effect. But okay, I got to calm down. But in that, a priest towards the end, when the town is unifying with the military, they're trying to take care of this gigantic, ever-growing, absorbing blob, right? The priest is disfigured. He's like attacked by a piece of the blob. And it's acidic nature, mutilates his face, and you think that he's done for. Then at the end of the movie, you see him and he's disfigured and he's like a tent evangelist now, and he has a dead eye, and he's speaking about, the things to come, almost in a this is the apocalypse and you just don't know it yet, even though we took care of the blob. This is the end of days. You need to prepare. And then he goes back behind his little, we'll call it behind his pulpit, if you will, in air quotes, in his tent, to a little area behind a curtain. And he has a jar with the piece of the blob still alive that disfigured him. And you know that he's planning his own end of days with his blob fragment that mutilated him and that changed him and transformed him and his views.
Could he go to the middle of nowhere and unleash it and let it grow? Or how does it grow? That's just it.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. So the movie The Blob starts with, something the size of a grapefruit. And then it becomes something the size of a building.
You don't want to take it into a populated area because there's things there that can maybe fight it. But what if you took it into the middle of nowhere and let it grow and grow and grow before anybody saw it? How would you want to unleash the blob, John?
I think that with the pandemonium, even in our modern era, if you just drop that in someone's lap at Shea Stadium, they're probably going to run around. They're probably going to bump into people. Fragments of blob will probably get on other people. Although the blob isn't just like some liquid that, goes wherever it's touched, right? But it needs to be a little deliberate. But it's going to absorb a person, and it's going to be forgotten about because everyone will have fled. And then it's going to go slip into a sewer. And so people don't even know what happened. And then it's going to absorb some other thing. It grows fast enough. And it's very, it can go through piping. It can go through your plumbing. But 1988 The Blob, by the way, Mark, super hard sell. Super hard sell. I truly think you will love it.
Okay.
For some future episode in the next year.
I worked with the guy who I did a movie called Undocumented Executive with the guy who got eaten in the sink in that movie.
Amazing scene. Great scene.
And so he was the guy who got eaten in the sink. So.
Yep. And before, I can't think of her name right now. She was in Baywatch, and she was the play Miss July in Under Siege.
Oh, Erica Eleniak.
Erica Eleniak.
Yeah.
She has a small part in The Blob. And she ends up, her body ends up taking vengeance on someone who was prepared to not engage in something very consensual, and he gets it in a very bad way.
Yeah, no, I'll watch it. I'm excited. Sounds like fun. I mean, if it's John approved.
What's great? Well, there are certain things that I like, and I don't know if you'll like it. Whereas this, I'm like, dude, you're gonna like this. There's a lot of commentary in it. It's interesting too because This was clearly very influenced by The Stuff, 1985, but of course The Stuff was very influenced by the original The Blob. It's just that you can see that the 1988 Blob is not just a remake of the 1955 The Blob. It's a remake of The Blob, but it's really going more off of The Stuff, in my opinion, for some of the visuals that it approaches. Just like we had Poltergeist and then Dark Skies, and the remake of Poltergeist reminded me more of Dark Skies in some ways than the original Poltergeist. But it's just the chain of influence, if you will.
Yeah. No, I will watch it. Because what do we have? We have Breakdown and the Saw franchise. And if I love Blob, we can just do that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, could we do something? Could we do something real quick? I was just looking at this. I just sent you a link in Skype, but let's do a quick 1990 movie draft.
A 1990 movie draft. That is a little intimidating.
There's a lot of movies, and I will give you first pick. So just 1990, not 1990s.
Okay, are we specifically going to exclude? I think let's just officially exclude Nightbreed.
Okay.
What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I don't think I'm going to use your link. I think I'm going to use my horror movie index.
Okay.
Because the things I know I've seen in a more time. Oh, okay. I'm taking Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
All right, Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. I'm going to do Gremlins 2.
Gremlins 2.
Because that one is an all-timer for me, the new batch.
I'm going to take TV Stephen King's It.
Oh. All right, I need to go big now. All right, It. Is it Stephen King's It or just It?
Stephen King's It.
Stephen King's. Oh man, that was a crazy one for me. Growing up, oh my gosh, when he's in the sewer. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's
Tim
see.
Curry at his best.
That was a great pick right there. So I'm not gonna take Maniac Cop. You can get over yourself.
Because you haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's right. No, you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna take Death by Temptation.
That's a great one. That I reviewed that way back in the day. I'm gonna go Bride of Reanimator.
Oh, Bride of Reanimator. I like
that. That was so bonkers.
All right, I'm gonna take Misery because the rare Oscar-winning horror film.
Good pick. That is a good pick. I'm gonna go. How many are we doing?
5.
And I have 3 so far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no,
there's some good picks out here. There's some fun picks in 90.
I'm gonna go. See, there's a sleeper cell. I don't know how that's gonna be received. We're putting this up for voting, right?
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna go. Okay, I want Child's Play 2.
Oh yeah, that's a fun one. All right, so I'm gonna take the Night of the Living Dead remake because I think that's a good remake.
I agree. You know, people get on that sometimes, and I think it's for all the wrong reasons.
I love it. I like that they're like, these zombies are slow. I'm gonna walk around them. And Tony Todd, the ending with him's they kind of cheapen the ending of the '68 version, but you know, Tony Todd's great. It's cool. And
they brought some good gore.
Yeah, real good gore. Oh my gosh, there's still a huge one left, John. I hope you don't see it.
You hope I see so many things that I want though.
Man.
Things that I'm thinking about are that I'm not gonna pick though. Two Evil Eyes. Like Meridian, actually, which is actually a vampire werewolf full moon release. I'm not a fan of Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. That might be your pick, but I'm one of the few people who isn't. I love Graveyard Shift.
Oh yeah.
I love Frankenhooker, but you know what? I have picked 2 bonkers sequels, so I'm going to pick another bonkers sequel. No, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do Basket Case 2. I want Hardware.
Oh, Hardware. Nice.
Richard Stanley. Hardware.
Oh. Yeah, before he made Island of Dr. Moreau and Color Out of Space, which we've talked about. So I'm not going to pick this one because it'll be cheat codes, but I did see that Tremors was released here. And
that's totally legit.
No, that's not fair. Like that won't make it fun because Tremors, so we do a lot of polls on movies, films, and flicks. Tremors is cheat codes. So I'm not going to, there's enough in here that I love that I'm not going to take. So I'm not going to take that one because I feel like that's a win for me. So
is that the one you were worried about me thinking of?
I was like, oh no. But no, let's see. Graveyard Shift. There's Flatliners, hey now.
That's great.
Let's see. I know this isn't great TV or podcasting here, but I don't want to take. I'm not gonna take Misery. Ooh, Killer Crocodile 2. That sounds like fun. Oh man, Phantom of the Opera with Burt Lancaster. Some interesting movies out this year, John. I kind of like going through these. You know what?
I'm more a fan of the Robert Englund 1989 Phantom of the Opera.
I'm gonna take Troll 2.
Troll 2.
Because listen, Tremors is cheat codes. You have
That goes a lot in my bonkers sequels theme though. Bride of Reanimator, Child's Play 2.
Oh yeah.
Well, Child's Play 2 isn't bonkers, but Bride of Reanimator is bonkers. Troll 2 is bonkers.
Oh, I love this. So I'll post this when if you listen to this episode, I'm gonna post it the day it releases. So if you're listening to this a year afterwards, it's been voted. But go to Movie Sounds Flicks anyway and check us out. And also rate, review, and subscribe. We would love that. But yeah, John, hey, do you want to what do you got to promote, John?
You know, boy, I mean, this podcast. I mean, folks can find me on Twitter and Instagram if you search for John's Horror Corner, at MFR Horror Corner, at John's Horror Corner. It just depends on where you go. But yeah, I do my writing, and every now and then we talk about a horror movie.
And then you got your beer and movie pairings on Instagram, which you need to go see. They're very fun.
I do have those. I have a little fun with that sometimes.
So that's like that's like a favorite to go look at. But this was great, man. And thank you so much for recommending this. I think this was a lot of fun. I'm glad we did it.
Absolutely. Dude, more people need to know about this movie. And whenever someone says, I still need to see that, and they're our age, I'm like, do yourself the service.
And the free version right now, if it's still on at this time or when you listen to this episode, because we record a little bit in advance, the 100-minute version is free on Tubi right now. It's not on Amazon. It's the 2-hour cut. The one place where the 100-minute cut is free is to Vudu. I messed that up.
And a fair warning to listeners, if you go on Amazon and you see that you can stream the director's cut or the regular movie, you're streaming the director's cut either way.
Yeah. So it's because I tried that and I saw the length, and then I found on Vudu the 100-minute cut. But there are ads, but it's free. Who cares? But yeah, check that out. And also, thank you so much for listening. So for me, Mark Hoffmeyer, and for John, the caveman, the strong man, Love and Good, this is Movie Sons of Flicks. We'll see you next week.